Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Leading Change. My name is Ema Roloff, and I've got Brian with me today, and we're going to be talking about the customer experience as it pertains to claims. But before I get into the questions that I've got for you, can you give everybody an introduction?
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me over here, Emma. I apologize because this is sunshade time, so I'm going to try to get away from the sun here in my office. But my name is Brian Thomas by role. I am the director of claims experience with Coterie Insurance. Super happy to be conversing with you today. Been in the business for geez, I got to count backwards. Probably for about 16 years, holding different hats, both as the individual contributor, people manager, product manager, in a multitude of different lines of insurance, all to do with claims, but different lines of insurance. And yeah, that's my story. That's my elevator pitch.
Thank you for fighting with the light in your office. I've got the opposite problem around now that it's winter around like 3 o'clock. I get it coming in, so I've got to start managing that a little bit more appropriately on my end.
No.
So you and I connected at the Reuters event, Connected Claims, a couple of weeks ago. And one of the things that we were talking about that kind of spurred this entire conversation was the idea of meeting your customers where they are as a part of that journey of supporting them through the claims process. And that was a phrase that I've used before. I heard you use it, and I'm just like, okay, we got to have a conversation about it. But to get us started, can you share your definition of kind of what that idea of meeting your customers where they are means to you?
Totally. It was so funny how we came to the same kind of motto between us. I'm sitting here thinking I was being unique, and you coined the phrase, so I got to pay you copyrights. But yes, meeting the customer where they are is a crucial key in terms of customer satisfaction. Nowadays, on demand is something you hear all the time, ad hoc and stuff like that. But it's so interesting how times have changed for what a customer can request and where they can get those requests at any time. So think about it. Before, when we had to get a cab, I know I was in high school. When I had to get a cab, I had to go dig out some old phone number. I had to call a phone number, I had to tell the person where I was going, tell the person where I'm coming from, yada, yada, yada. What do you do now? You go on your phone, open up the Uber app. You literally have to have zero conversation with the driver. Everything is set up, meeting the customer where they are. So we find ways to do that with our industry. So the thing about the insurance industry, which is very unique, is that there's the big three industries in the world, right? Medical, banking, and insurance. And if you kind of look at it, insurtech is a phrase that probably is very young, right? So I'm just pulling a number out of the air, probably only about maybe 10 years old in terms of finding ways of using technology and leveraging that to be able to assist the customer in the journey itself. So with that, we find a lot of ways to assist customers in ways that they might have those assistants in a medical capacity, in a banking capacity, and just helping speed up the claim process. The claim process is a process that can take a very long time, but it doesn't necessarily need to be. And that's what we do here. That's a little bit of the coterie difference.
So let's talk a little bit more specifically about how you guys are using technology to enable this type of communication and support for your customers.
Great question. We'll start with the start and the end of a claim. Those are two key and crucial points from a customer standpoint, right? The customer wants to feel as if they are comforted, cared for, right? So getting back to the customer after that initial first notice of loss is a key and crucial time. We all know that it might be difficult to get in touch with those folks because they're busy. Mainly the folks who we call our insureds are small business owners. Some of them are owner operators, so they might just be the one loan for that specific company. So let's say we have somebody who's a roofer. They won't have the ability to set aside time and speak with us and have a full conversation with regards to setting up the claim and such, right? So the first thing in terms of getting the claim to us, we have a couple of different options for that person to submit that first notice of loss. We have the antiquated option, not trying to insult anybody, but we have the antiquated option of a phone call to actually speak with a rep, but also a self-guided option where somebody can fill out a form with all of the pertinent information. It is a dynamic form, so you're not going to be asked questions that have nothing to do with your claim. And then that would submit a claim into our system. So that's the first part. The second part is the conversation with that of the insured or the claimant. The insured being obviously your policyholder, the claimant being non-insured, an individual that has been affected by this loss that is not a person who pays your premiums. So getting in contact with these folks. Now, I don't know about you. I'm a normal millennial. So I tell my parents all the time, I'm like, text me. If you call me, chances are I'm not going to answer. So we have those abilities through our specific telephony program that we're able to text folks versus the antiquated phone call, because that's once again meeting the customer where they are. You're able to text a lot quicker than you're able to set aside a phone call, set aside time, concentrate on speaking with that individual on the phone. Obviously, using email as well, but text message is a quicker form of communication, right? Meeting the customer where they are. The chances are, especially if you're a small business owner, you're always going to have your cell phone with you because you don't want to miss out on that lead. You don't want to miss out on that next customer, right? So that's why we can meet them there. And then as a final, the actual payment portion. If a claim ends out in a indemnification, if there's payment to be made to either an insured or a non-insured, we find ways of meeting the customer where they are there. Now, gone are the days, not completely gone, but gone are the days where everything exclusively is paid by check. Because what do you have to do with the check? You have to take the check, you have to go down to the bank, and then you have to have it cashed. And despite what many of the customers might be thinking going to the bank, if you have a very big check that you are cashing, let's say, for example, $20,000, depending on your financial institution, it might be stair stepped when that deposit is actually made. So you might get 5 grand here and then 10 grand in a couple of days and then 30 grand someplace else. And that's all if the check is successfully received through the mail. If it's not, I got to stop it and then redo it. It could be weeks before that person gets their payment. So here we offer a couple of different options, right? We offer direct deposit, which everybody knows. Most of all us in the working fields get our payments every pay period through direct deposit. Something cool called direct to debit, which is actually a payment option that you can get your money in as little as 30 minutes. Usually it's like 8 minutes on average. Don't quote me, but usually it's about 30 minutes that you can get your money directly to a debit card. We also have printable checks, so somebody can print a check if they have that need and they have an app on their phone where they want to do that. We also have the paper check option if that is an option that somebody wants to choose. Virtual credit card for some of our business folks, so they can type it into their POS system like a temporary credit card. So we find ways to have those different options out there. And the way that we actually do this is when we put a payment into the system, it puts a portal entry to the payee. The payee would authenticate in the system and they would choose their payment path. We're not going to choose the payment path for you. They would choose their payment path. That edifying and that empowering of the individual to be a part of the claim process goes beyond measure. It is pretty awesome to have that ability to service our customers.
Thank you for going into that technology side of things and how you guys are using that to support customers. But I want to also look at the people side of this because this is another area that you and I have talked about, and there's some synergies in terms of our passion for supporting people. But even if you give people the right tools, you still have to make sure that they have the right interpersonal ability to support your customers. So can you talk a little bit about that idea of first line support and how you're supporting your team through that?
Such a phenomenal question, Emma. Thank you for proposing that. So the one thing that technology can do many things. We know technology, we have echoes everywhere, we have Google Homes everywhere, Siri is doing things for us. Technology can do so much for us, right? The one thing that technology has difficulty with is empathy, having that human type of side. I'm sorry that you're going through that. I'm sorry that this happened to you. Technology has a difficult time with that. So finding ways to have that hybrid model of leveraging technology for speed and simplicity of service, but then also using the human side to be able to be there for that individual's time of need, especially in an insurance claims environment. A claim is something that is not scheduled in people's lives. If you have a very organized individual, my wife would say not me, but let's say my wife, for example, if you have a very organized individual, they schedule every portion of their day, and a claim, an emergent circumstance, something was not scheduled to occur. So it derails them. We need to be there for that empathy and be there to be able to answer any questions they might have, to be able to comfort them and let them know that we got it. We have your back. The policy is enforced. The policy is covering for this specific loss if that scenario fits for that specific example, but we have your back and we'll take care of you. That is a key and crucial part of customer service. It's something that we can really cement down into our folks here to be able to assist the customer and just being there. It may not always be a productive conversation, but it's better to have a conversation, let them know I'm still working on it. I don't have any answers now, but I will circle back with you. It's better to have that. Another point that we kind of cement in our folks is under promise, over deliver. For example, if I tell you I'm going to give you a call tomorrow at 12 noon and tomorrow hits, it's 1:30, you didn't hear from me, you're going to freak out. But if I let you know that I'm going to give a call within a couple of days and then I'll call you today at noon, under promise, over deliver. You don't want to set unreal expectations for the customer, especially like I said before, in these emergent circumstances for these claims. Something has happened that their life or their business is derailed. We have to do what we can. If I try to dodge a light, we have to do what we can to try to there for that customer and assist them with any questions they might have.
Thank you so much for joining me for the conversation, Brian. And for anybody that is not already, be sure you make your way over to his LinkedIn, give him a follow there. And as always is the case, reach out to either one of us if you have any questions. But thank you so much for sharing your experience with us, Brian, and have a wonderful day, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Leading Change. If you liked what you saw, be sure to subscribe and come back weekly for more expert interviews on digital transformation, change management, and emerging technologies.